Ah way, Amicas. Do you hate immersion? Do you hate realism? Do you like phony try-hard gangster wannabes? If you answered yes to any of the above, have I got the town for you? Allow me to introduce Fallout 4's one and only ghetto, Goodneighbor. Goodneighbor serves as the den of scum and villainy for Fallout 4. This location is just another town, but masquerading as a dangerous slum, ruled by gangs and flowing with chems. I find this town to be very interesting. I find it similar to Riften from Skyrim, a town that constantly professes how dangerous, cutthroat, and crime-filled it is, yet is just another town of generic good guys. There is nothing worse and nothing more common in Bethesda games than good guys who try to act bad. Since the loss of the karma system and the decision by Bethesda to change the realism of the post-apocalypse to the equivalent of a PG-13 rating, their world building has suffered for it. I really would go so far as to say that Bethesda has taken a very realistic and immersive world and stripped down layers until they reached a PG-13 level of bad stuff. The older Fallout games took their players seriously and crafted the world to match. Fallout 4, which is an M-rated game, is still obviously meant to be played by children. Not the adults who were playing the older games, and even those that played the older games as children and would be in their late teens for the release of this game. Now the market is for the widest possible audience, including kids, so they had to remove all the actual slum activity from their slums. The older Fallout games were more concerned with creating a world that functioned like a post-apocalypse would. Murder, prostitution, gambling, slavery, and theft were all displayed openly for the player to see and interact with. Goodneighbor embodies this change in a very interesting way. Let's take a look at what locations, factions, NPCs, and quests we can find in Fallout 4's one and only Slum. Where better to start than with the entrance? The entrance to Goodneighbor is a pain in the ass to find. But past that, when the player first enters Goodneighbor, we are given a scripted scene. A man will approach us and attempt to extort the player. He will request caps for insurance to walk around the city. If this feels exactly like entering Riften for the first time, that's because it's almost a one-for-one copy. In Skyrim, one of the Riften guards will try to extort the player's gold for the visitor's tax. The player can pass a very easy speech check in both games where we refuse the offer for the shakedown that it is. After we refuse the robbery, the ghoul mayor of the town will approach the criminal. The man makes a vague threat about replacing Hancock and is promptly stabbed and killed. Hancock will give a response based on how we reacted to the stick-up. I do appreciate that he has a unique response depending on if the player paid the thug, talked our way out of it, or just killed him. I'm pleasantly surprised the game even lets us kill him. I almost expected him to fall on the ground for a minute, then pop back up to have the interaction with Hancock. Credit where it's due, if the player exits the conversation fast enough, we can kill a man. Unfortunately, this doesn't affect how the rest of the town will treat us. Walking into town and shooting a man immediately would probably get you noticed, but alas, no. Hancock welcomes us to the town of Goodneighbor, telling us this is a town of the people for the people. The town goes to great lengths to make sure the player is aware that they are playing on old American values, but with an anarchist spin on it. Now that we have been introduced to the leader of this town, let's talk about Hancock for a minute. First of all, he is a ghoul, which the player is often expected to have a big reaction to. Even though the ghouls in Fallout 4 are the most smooth-skinned ghouls we have ever seen in Fallout, until the TV series comes out anyway, we have the option to be horrified at his rotting appearance. I mean, do you guys remember Set? Now that's an intimidating ghoul. Hancock has the same generic face as the rest. They couldn't have made him a unique ghoul. The one ghoul follower in the game, the mayor of the town, has the same face as the rest. Moving on, the neighborhood watch guards in Goodneighbor will comment on how Hancock is the self-appointed mayor of the town. Because anarchy. Remember, this town is edgy and cool. After spending a certain amount of time in town, Hancock will go to his balcony and give a very uninspiring speech. I personally hate it when characters in games do things for the benefit of the player and not as they would in real life. The speech he gives is a speech to remind the player that the enemy of the game is the Institute, and to inform us that these people in Goodneighbor are very aware of the Institute and are not friendly towards them. That'll be it for Hancock until a later quest. Now, let's talk about NPCs. When talking about NPCs, we should first mention an important unspoken understanding in Fallout games. The NPCs in the game are those we can actually interact with. These are usually relegated by engine limitations. It is insinuated that each settlement has a much higher population in the lore. For example, Diamond City has like 50 NPCs. But when you're hearing about the Commonwealth Provisional Government, it's spoken of as Diamond City, implied to be much larger and more populated than the engine allows. We can see some attempts to make up for this with mock houses or apartments on the edges of cities. The older Fallout games did this very well, having pieces of city visible on the edges and outskirts of locations, but inaccessible to the player. However, while I am critiquing and offering alternatives, it is focused on the actual NPCs and locations in the game. Population refers to the people the player can shoot and talk to, not the implied thousands that live there in the lore. On that note, adding lots of generic NPCs around a settlement is very important. The role they serve should not be understated. Not every NPC needs to be a named individual with a fetch quest. Having many NPCs adds life and immersion to a location. It goes to great lengths to make the world feel live-in. NPCs give you the option to add many different dialogue lines to be said based on the character's choices. When these are said in passing by multiple regular people NPCs, it shows your character's choices are being felt by the world. The masses acknowledge you for good or ill. The player feels a tangible change in their reputation with the game world. The second point on NPCs in Goodneighbor is the shocking lack of prostitutes in this slum. Stabbing a man in the gut and killing him is fine, overdosing is fine, but prostitution is just too edgy to have in the game. A point should be made in case anyone in the comments feels the inclination to make an argument like, you just want pervy sex stuff in your video games. I would first tell them I don't think you're old enough to play Fallout. Then I would say, if it makes sense for it to be somewhere, then yes, I would rather it be there. In Fallout 2, in the city of New Reno, there is a porno studio. Prostitutes and pimps line the streets, and there are whorehouses in many of the other cities. These are great additions, not for any sort of sexual gratification, but because it's realistic. It's no secret that Fallout games don't show you having sex, and I prefer it to remain that way. If you disagree, then I'm sure there's mods out there for you. However, the inclusion of occupations like this and locations that facilitate it would realistically be there. Just look at any slum in real life and how people there survive poverty and addiction. Every city in this world has prostitutes. There's a reason it's called the world's oldest profession. And having them in Fallout creates a certain realism and aesthetic for the morally decayed cities. The town of New Reno is a slum, and rightfully filled with whores, drugs, and criminals. In the post-apocalypse, Modesty is a commodity not everyone can afford. The world reflects the bleak reality of how many people would be forced to get by. In a place where law and order is dictated by whomever has the most influence and the most goons, they would realistically function this way. If someone should say, people don't have to sell themselves in this town, it's not that kind of place, I would point out that this is one of 2 cities in the Commonwealth. Anyone looking for better odds at surviving would flock to these places. If someone might say they would rather go to a settlement than sell themselves, I'd point out that whores in real life don't leave society to go live off the land, probably because that's a very difficult lifestyle, and it's expensive and dangerous. If the world was full of ghouls, super mutants, mirelurks, deathclaws, and everything else, imagine how much more dangerous that would be. All things being considered, a prostitute is a safer life choice than a farmhand in the Commonwealth. The Neighborhood Watch will comment on wanting to go to the memory den to relive seeing a girl they knew a few weeks back. Good thing there isn't any prostitutes you could pay in this town. Instead, go pay the memory den to remember your sexual escapades. Oh, so New Reno had sex, booze, and drugs? You know, all the pleasures a tired merc would be willing to spend their hard-earned caps on. Well, here in Goodneighbor, we've got the booze and drugs and a place you can remember the sex you've had. Now, I hope I've made a good case for prostitution in Fallout. I had to justify their existence in the game before I could argue for their inclusion. With this in mind, let's return to the topic of populating these towns. There are several key examples of this I would like to focus on. First is Fallout 1 and 2. In any settlement, the player would see many unimportant NPCs going about their daily lives. In Fallout 1 and 2, these NPCs would not move, but that was mostly to do with the limitations of the hardware at the time. Remember, these games released in the 90s. New Reno in Fallout 2 is one of my favorite examples of generic NPCs making the world feel more alive. Hookers, pimps, and drug dealers line the streets of New Reno. These NPCs will respond with various dialogue lines depending on the character's standing with the city. If you are a made man with one of the gangs, they will treat you with respect. Everybody knows your gang name and they will call you by it. You'll be given free services at the whorehouses. Rival gangs will shoot you if you spend too long in their casinos. Pimps and druggies will kiss ass as you walk by. The game world very effectively responds to the choices the player has made. Similar to being a made man, if you are a high charisma Kama Sutra master, you can even become a porn star. If you've starred in a Golden Globes production, the generic NPCs in town will also treat you differently. Your character walks down the street as a celebrity. Girls will ask if they can star in your next film, or comment on how they enjoyed your performance in a film. Pimps will offer you their clients for your next project. However, the gangs in town don't seem impressed or concerned with this kind of fame. I find the exclusion of the gang reputation very immersive in this outcome. The ladies and pimps and lowlife people care, but anyone who is important couldn't care less that you're a sleaze. The world responds accordingly, which is part of what makes New Reno one of the best towns in all of Fallout. Let's look at a 3D game, not in the Fallout franchise, that utilizes nameless generic NPCs perfectly. Assassin's Creed Origins. I know this game was released in 2017, 2 years after Fallout 4. With that being said, this isn't an example of what they should have done, but how well it can be done. And if more Fallout games are going to be released in the future, they should take notes from this game. Origins is one of the best examples of creating a living world. I have played very few games that immerse you into the world purely by the life of the towns like Assassin's Creed Origins. By having large numbers of NPCs around doing various menial tasks, the world feels as if it's existing without you. Settlements in Origins feel like a thriving community you are visiting. We see NPCs working in many different occupations, from blacksmithing to brick making to fabric dyeing to selling food. These people are going about their daily lives instead of being a stagnant town of merchants and quest givers waiting eternally for the player. Now back to Fallout 4. I counted 19 NPCs outside in Goodneighbor. 20 if the mechanic is walking around outside, and there's more at the start and the end of the day because it seems bustling, but everybody is just moving from their daytime spot to their nighttime spot. This is a shameful amount of NPCs for a town like this. I know the engine can only handle so many at a time without breaking, but they should have had more than this. It's barely enough to have a guard on each corner and 2 or 3 people per street. Isn't this a town? How do they support themselves? Do the same NPCs that live here just have an infinite supply of caps to keep buying guns and scrap and beer and pay for beds? Since this town doesn't produce anything except beer and chems, is everyone employed by one of the 5 businesses in this town? Why don't we see traders, caravans, travelers, mercenaries, prostitutes, or chem dealers on the streets? For being the dangerous slum of Fallout 4, there is no street activity whatsoever. It's so bleak and sterile. The most action we see in the streets of Goodneighbor is that one time we almost got mugged. And that time the neighborhood watch killed a synth while we weren't there. We can walk behind the Hotel Rexford and get shot at by 3 triggermen, but they never leave that alley, and the neighborhood watch will do nothing about them. Why don't we see some of that murder, theft, or kidnapping that all the NPCs insinuate goes on here? Even Skyrim was able to do this. Remember that generic thief that would steal from a shop and be killed by guards in Riften? It wasn't much, but it was more than nothing. Having some pimps outside advertising their girls, or whores asking for services, or having the guards beating up a lowlife for not paying their tab at the bar. Have guards shooting a thief who is trying to make an escape. Have thugs that try to jump the player. Fallout New Vegas did this very well in Freeside. Junkies and lowlifes would try to kill, trap, or rob the player. Fallout 2 did this well in New Reno. Pimps, whores, and drug dealers line the sidewalks. If you bring your car into town and leave it unattended, it actually gets stolen. The crime-filled cities had crimes going on, not the same peaceful NPCs walking from the store to the sidewalk all day without anything suspicious ever happening. Aside from the garbage and the 3 triggermen down the alley, Goodneighbor is actually a very peaceful and safe town. One of the most peaceful locations in the whole Commonwealth. The town of Covenant has more crimes going on than Goodneighbor does. Let that sink in for a minute. Even Diamond City was able to capture a feeling of life and buzzing with activity. There is a stark difference between Diamond City and Goodneighbor. The former actually captures a feeling of the day-in, day-out business of civilians. Now, we've discussed what could be long enough. Let's take a look at the unique individuals that can actually be found here. Next, let's talk about the Vault Tech rep. In the Hotel Rexford, the player can meet a familiar character, the Vault Tech salesman from the intro of the game. If the player has met Daisy previously, she will have told us to come here to meet him. He is here and alive after 200 years, and he is wearing the same yellow overcoat. I very much doubt that after nuclear Armageddon and 200 years of living in the filth, decay, and bloodshed, as he says, that coat would still be around, much less in perfect condition. If his skin is any indication of what 200 years in the wasteland does, then what is with the yellow coat? Obviously, it's because they want us to recognize this character somehow. The face can't do it, since all ghouls look the exact same, so they kept the coat. The player can talk about how they survived the wastes. I give credit where it's due. The character's dialogue is fantastic. He is resentful of our 200-year-old youthfulness and jealous. And different dialogue options actually take the conversation in different directions. If we say we survived with the blood of our enemies, he will call bullshit and insult Codsworth. Interesting note, the subtitles say fucking, but the voice actor says damn. One more for the what the fuck Bethesda counter. I looked it up online, and it doesn't look like this has been noticed before. Meaning there wasn't a Reddit thread on it. So that's actually pretty neat. The ghoul will tell us a sob story regardless, and he obviously wants to come to Sanctuary. Why he didn't stay there in the first place is beyond me. The robot bothered you? You have a whole town, buddy. Unfortunately, this NPC gives us no information on Goodneighbor, and that's about it.
Trimming those damned edges like nothing happened.
Next, we will talk about Marowski. In the Hotel Rexford, we can meet one of the few drug bosses in the Commonwealth, Marowski. He is involved in some of the best quests in this game. However, these quests are not very easy to find. I guess that would be a good thing because neither are drug bosses in real life, but whatever. There is a series of quests that interact with him and connect with other NPCs in Goodneighbor, so I have included it in this video. I would count it as content for this town as well as Diamond City. It also happens to be one of the better quest lines in this game. Since the segment on quests in Goodneighbor is next, we'll just start with these: Diamond City Blues and the Marowski Heist. If we enter the Colonial Tap House in Diamond City, we can find a man named Henry Cook and a woman named Darcy Pembroke. Her cucked husband, Paul Pembroke, will try to stand up to Cook. After he gets his ass handed to him, we can be enlisted by Paul to rough up his wife's lover. This encounter can go many different ways. This is one of the few quests with a spaghetti pile of outcomes and interactions, and that is a very good thing. We can kill Cook, turn on Paul, or have all three of us settle the beef. In my playthrough, I let Henry Cook kill Mr. Pembroke here. He was a cuck with a weak jaw, and he slouches just like his wife. As long as Henry survives the encounter, he will share with us his plan to make a buck and skip town. We meet him by the waterfront to intercept a drug deal. Only here does Cook reveal that we are stealing from Marowski, and I'm annoyed we don't get the option to turn on him here. I tried multiple times to speak to the drug dealers or Nelson Latimer and sell out Cook. I hoped we could flip sides and help Marowski out here. Earn brownie points with the boss for turning on one of his backstabbing dealers. If the player has been to Goodneighbor, they might already know who Marowski is and not want to cross him. However, we are locked into a hostile engagement with Nelson and Tish. Afterwards, the unkillable ghoul Tish will reveal the location of Marowski's lab. We also don't have the option to let her go and leave the drugs to be picked up by more of Marowski's men. Suffice to say, I never touched any of the chems. But, in Bethesda fashion, all the NPCs are locked into their reactions, despite our characters' actions. After we have done this and raided the drug lab, the quest will complete. But I never raided the 4-leaf fish packing plant, because my character doesn't want to piss off any drug lords. The quest will forever be in my log, directing me to wipe out the drug lab. Well, that's just kind of lame. No alternative route to complete it. The quest following this is one directly tied to Marowski, and it's easily missable. In fact, I missed it on my first couple playthroughs. We must return to Diamond City and speak with Darcy. She will ask about the fate of her husband. We tell her without implicating ourselves. Malcolm Latimer will also speak with the player and ask what happened to his son. We tell him to go fuck himself, and he returns to the other 3 rich people in town. After about a week in the game, we can speak with Darcy again. She will give the player a photograph that belonged to Paul. This is a photo of Henry Cook, Paul Pembroke, and Malcolm Latimer outside Marowski's old drug lab. This photo implicates those 3 men in the destruction and ruin of Marowski's drug empire. We have multiple options for how we want to play this. The player can bribe Malcolm Latimer for it, or take it to Marowski. Upon meeting the boss after the events with Cook and Trish, he will demand we pay him 2,000 caps for the drugs we stole. This is very realistic. There are repercussions for our actions. Tish ratted on us, which is also very realistic. In case anyone watching has contemplated the criminal life, just know that everyone snitches. That's why torture exists. Marowski demands the payment, but that's funny, Marowski, because your chem lab is untouched and those drugs are still sitting by the dock. Another Bethesda moment of not taking into consideration the player's choices. I do appreciate that he gives the player a week to pay off this debt, and we can talk him down to 1,000 caps instead. If the player misses their payment, Marowski will send a band of triggermen to attack us, either in Diamond City or in Goodneighbor. This is another great touch and a very reasonable outcome. To pay off this debt, we can instead show him the photograph and those responsible for his empire's downfall. He will call us even for this information and ask us to kill everyone in the picture for more caps. I chose to shoot that pompous bastard Malcolm in the face and make a bumbling escape from Diamond City. We return for congratulations and payment. But then, our interactions with Marowski reset to default. The default interactions where he just tells us to get lost and either buy chems from Fred Allen or rent a room from Claire. So this guy just lost his only 2 dealers in Diamond City, those being Henry Cook and Nelson Latimer, and potentially his whole lab. But we don't have the option of helping him restore his drug empire to former glory? I very much enjoy these 2 quests, even if they leave out key choices the player should be able to make. I'm much more disappointed that it just ends here, so unceremoniously. The next quest, given by Rufus in the Hotel Rexford, is called Trouble Brewin. Trouble Brewin is without a doubt one of the worst things Bethesda has had the balls to call a quest. This sequence makes Liberty Prime look like Shakespearean-level writing. We complete another generic dungeon. Then we find the brewing machine. It is a modified Protectron unit named Drinking Buddy. I actually thought he was quite endearing when I first found him. But after that dungeon, we are tasked with escorting him to Goodneighbor. He walks at the slowest speed you've ever seen. We must escort the robot all the way back to Goodneighbor, moving at the speed of an encumbered player. The devs made sure to have giant packs of raiders, super mutants, feral ghouls, and mirelurks about every 15 feet. This robot, designed for brewing and not fighting, will refuse to continue until all the enemies have been killed. The amount of time we wasted standing there while some raider or super mutant on a rooftop we couldn't reach takes pot shots at us was fucking infuriating. Who thinks this is fun? Oh yeah, Fallout is about shooting enemies, right? That's what players want. That's what the original games were all about, just fucking shooting enemies. I play on PS4, and the city frame rate drops to potato speed. It's like if Blighttown and Zandalar had an unholy child of ultimate frame rate stuttering and lag. That is a Dark Souls and World of Warcraft reference, in case you don't know the names. The point is, this quest blows. Babysitting a Protectron at tortoise speed through constant laggy fights is the lowest shit tier of gameplay, and does not belong in Fallout. We follow Buddy through every enemy camp he can find, and spend 15 minutes waiting for him to give up on the roof raiders. Or better yet, sometimes he goes up to try and get them. Do you know how long it takes this robot to get up and then back down 5 flights of stairs? Who fucking made this? I want to know. After, I shit you not, 20 minutes to walk down the street, we arrive at Goodneighbor. For some reason, I thought the robot was going to the third rail, with everyone complaining about their booze quality being shit and it being the only bar in town. It just made sense. But instead we go to the Hotel Rexford. Now they have a joke-telling, beer-manifesting robot to go with their decrepit building. That's nice. Don't sell the fresh beer maker to the only bar in town. Having it go to the Hotel Rexford almost looks like Marowski is trying to undercut the third rail's monopoly on alcohol in town. Given the fact that the third rail is owned by Hancock, this is a clever plan. But that's not the case, because even though it looks that way, Bethesda's not smart enough to write that in. This is just where it happens to go, and Marowski and the rest of the town are completely unchanged. This is one of the worst, most shallow quests in Bethesda history. I mean, out of Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, Fallout 3, and Fallout 4, this quest stands out for the hollow imitation of a hated quest style that it is. Right next to Kid in a Fridge, Troubled Brewin takes its place with the other dogshit quests. Do you know what people famously hated from Morrowind? Well, yes, Cliff Racers too, but I meant the slow, tedious, and boring escort quests. I need to go from Aldrune to Ebonheart, and I have 1 speed. Take me there slowly, Nerevarine. That kind of quest. Except here they multiplied the enemy count by 1,000, and being high level means it's 50 bullets per super mutant at minimum. They took this outdated and widely hated quest style to make a parody of its worst elements, and they have the balls to give this shit a quest title. Shit gameplay goes really well with a side of no fucking resolution. The Dig. This quest appears on almost every list of top 10 quests in Fallout 4. I can see why, but in my experience, this is one of the most buggy, ludicrous quests in the game. This is essentially the main quest for Goodneighbor. You know, Morthal had the vampires, Dawnstar had the nightmare quest, Goodneighbor has the heist. It's the way we unlock Hancock as a follower, after all. So sit tight, Amicas. I have a lot to say on this one. In Goodneighbor, we can hear murmurings about a woman to see if we are looking for work. Bobby No-Nos. Killer name for a ghoul, I will admit. We can head down an alley and speak to her through the hole? For some reason, it was surprisingly difficult to find out what the sliding panel on a door is called. Because I wouldn't call it a peephole, it's the what's the password thing. We all know what they are, but once I started writing, I didn't know what to call it. The best I could find is a sliding speakeasy. So there's that piece of information for you. We speak to Bobby, and she offers us a job. In Fallout 4 style, the one thing charisma is good for is getting a higher pay for any job. We do the yellow, orange, red, and accept the offer to work for her. Upon entering, she has teleported to the basement, and there she details the job. We are going to be digging a secret tunnel. I actually really like how there is just a tunnel right there in her basement. It looks like a shitty tunnel that was freshly dug, with wooden supports. This is actually perfect. Things are looking good for this quest. We accept the job and head right in. Then, problems. Guess what immediately stops the workers' progression when we enter? Not a cave-in, not a gas line, not a sewage breach, not badger moles, not a bunker, and not an Indian burial ground. Mirelurks. I fucking love creative choices. The two workers are spooked and run away. Then, more problems. First of all, third-person gameplay sucks in Fallout 4. The character moves very smoothly, but somehow they've managed to fuck up third-person gunplay. I spent a substantial amount of time making my characters look, fit their occupation and lifestyle. That's why I make different characters for each faction or quest line in every game like this I play. And so, I prefer to actually see my badass mercenary doing the mercenary things. Guess I have to sacrifice gameplay functionality to see my character. If you're inside any building or tight space, good luck shooting at what you're aiming at, or being able to see it all. Grenades aren't thrown accurately either. Second of all, this quest bugged immediately, and my player cannot access the third Mirelurk, soft-locking this quest indefinitely. Nice job, Bethesda. We reload and try again. Serious question, where is all the dirt going? We can see one bin filled with dirt, but that's it. And this is a very big tunnel, and that displaced soil would need to go somewhere. Maybe instead of the entire building being an empty shit pen, it could have been filled with dirt. I think that would have added a lot to the quest. Walking inside to see rooms filled top to bottom with dirt. The player follows the only cleared path through the dirt to the basement. Have suspicious piles of dirt outside the house or falling from the windows onto the street. Or better yet, have a giant pile of dirt outside the town, exactly where Bobby's house is. Maybe an introduction to this quest could be a worker shoveling dirt away from a hole in the wall just outside of Goodneighbor. Anyway, we put about 60 bullets into a crab because the gaming industry thought, people like fighting, let's make every enemy in every game require 1,000,000 hits to kill. That way players spend more time fighting. Players like fighting. And Bethesda fell prey to this mindset as well. Seriously, I can't be the only one who's noticed the exponential increase of enemy health pools with each new game that releases. But back to Fallout. The two other workers will run off, leaving us alone to return to Bobby. For being the only employee to stay, she gives us a promotion. That's nice. She tells us to head over to Diamond City to find a new member for the job. I really appreciate this quest starting with the operation failing, requiring the boss to make changes to get around this roadblock. It showcases competent characters, and it isn't just a straightforward, flawless job. We travel to Diamond City, and everybody has forgotten that I gave Malcolm Latimer a dirt nap. Really? I mean, it's not like we can surrender in Fallout 4. They left that option out of this game for some reason. But there's still a jail here. What the fuck, Bethesda? How does that make any sense? You can't surrender, but you have a jail? Even if you pickpocket, petty theft ends in a death sentence on the spot. What kind of microaggression lands you in jail in the first place? Oh yeah, it's only there so we can get a guy out for this quest. I love competent world design. Bobby meets us in Diamond City, and I enjoy the detail that she wears a mask to hide the fact that she is a ghoul. Good thing your rotting neck is visible just below the conspicuous mask. Bobby tells us that we need to break Mel out of jail. She also tells us that our goal is the storehouse located below the mayor's office. Okay, so why did she come here? She could have told us both of those things without doing the obvious disguise and risking coming to Diamond City, but okay, Bobby. We convince the guards to release Mel. This is no problem for a salacious rapscallion like ourselves. We meet Mel outside, and quick note, Fuck Mel. Who writes this dialogue? I feel like I'm talking to Delphine from Skyrim. I guess it's just a Bethesda staple to write infuriating, ungrateful punks who insult the player with no option for repercussions. We just take insults all day without ever being able to dish them out in return. There was that one time we got to call a lady in Diamond City a bitch, and our character goes, bitch, and barely even says anything to her. You are not allowed to be an intimidating badass in Fallout 4. You must always be a dejected, servile bitch to every NPC. I'd just like to point out that in Fallout 2, you could tell everyone to go fuck themselves in some way. I mean shopkeepers, drug dealers, presidents, and everyone in between. In Fallout 2, you were a shit-talking wordsmith of profanity. Almost like they gave us more than one reaction besides reverent supplication and groveling. Once back to Bobby's basement, we continue through the tunnel. Mel has a special modified iBot named Sonia. She is able to move sediment using a special frequency of waves. And I'm all for the idea. Looking into the real-world effect that frequencies have on matter is actually really cool. But the execution is a little off. I like the pooling dirt piles, but displacing doesn't mean dissolving. We know that matter cannot be created nor destroyed, it has to be moved. You know what, it's fine, let's keep going. But oh no, Amicas, more problems. This quest quickly devolves into yet another dungeon. We go from rooms of mirelurks to metros of ghouls. And since my character is a high level, these enemies have a mandatory metric fuckton of health. And Mel does the classic Bethesda move of running in front of your gun to stab at the enemies with a knife. Why does he have a nut? Give him a gun. Maybe I just had bad luck in this dungeon, but this whole sequence was ruined by the constant clunky combat. And in the brewery basement, my character kept getting stuck on things on the floor and ceiling. With tanky ghouls flailing around the room, this was a very unpleasant trip. On a positive note, the metro is a good idea to make up some of that digging distance. And while we're at it, here's another positive. The idle dialogue from Mel and Bobby during our journey is great. Mel and Bobby will comment on us being the new guy in the crew. I think Mel even calls us cute. Mel will comment on his surroundings often. Bobby schemes and dismisses the death of Sonia. It's really good stuff. These two actually act like ex-coworkers very well. 50 bullet sponges later, and we have arrived at our destination. We enter the strong room. Surprise, surprise, Bobby lied to us. We actually broke into one of Hancock's warehouses. It's a solid twist, but the dialogue beforehand makes it painfully obvious that we aren't where she says we are. Bethesda can't wait for any reveals. The Maxon reveal during the quest to kill Dance spoiled it beforehand, and this quest spoils it beforehand. Can't let the player have a reveal. Instead, make it obvious early to make sure the player understands the writing genius of having a twist. I do very much enjoy how this quest can play out. We are confronted by Fahrenheit, Hancock's muscle. She reveals we are in Hancock's warehouse, not Diamond City, and she also gives us the option to walk away with our lives. The player can take this choice, follow through with Bobby's plans anyway, or turn on Bobby. If the player follows through with Bobby, we kill Fahrenheit and open Hancock's safe. There is nothing of value in here, and we get a bogus 200 caps for all that. I know she gave us 200 up front, but I spent over 1,500 rounds of ammo in that dungeon to get here, plus a good amount of grenades, stimpaks, and radaway. 400 caps doesn't cover that cost. It's not worth the cost of making enemies with Goodneighbor either. Bobby sifts through some files and tells us she found dirt on Hancock. Good thing that'll never come up again. They had the opportunity to use one of their drug bosses again. Wouldn't Marowski be interested in the dirt on Hancock? The dig could be an opening to a series of quests where we help Marowski regain his power and rebuild his drug empire. Nah, power plays and blackmail isn't the type of thing a mob boss would do. Drug dealing ain't easy, but at least it's honest work. Bobby says she is moving to a place called Southie, which means a random fucking building to the south. If we return to Goodneighbor after this, Hancock will be waiting for us. He calls us out for robbing his warehouse and gives a very solid reason for why he should kill us. But then he says he's a little short on muscle, so he just wants us to kill Bobby and get the money. What? You mean the 7 guards under your payroll within shouting distance don't count as muscle? You're the mayor. Everyone loves you here. Wouldn't everybody attack us if you said so? All he has to do is yell, "Synth," and we would be disemboweled in the streets. Anyway, he tells us to go kill Bobby and pay him 1,000 caps, and he will call it even. Well, I'm unimpressed, but I do appreciate how the story continues. There are actual consequences for our actions, and this is fantastic. Once we confront Bobby, we kill her. We have the option of letting her walk away, but when we choose this option, she says that she needs those caps more than we do. After giving her the option to walk away with her life, keeping the caps was just the final straw. We kill her and return to Hancock. Returning to Hancock after killing Bobby will put the player in the exact same location as if we had listened to Fahrenheit and left. The option to turn on Bobby in the warehouse just skips the extra walking we did. So if you were waiting for me to go back and explain the results of the other options, this is it. It's just this, but Fahrenheit survives. Hancock tells us we have the right kind of attitude, and he wants to travel with us to ensure he doesn't become soft. After pulling a heist on him and killing Fahrenheit, this feels very out of place. But he rationalizes it, so I guess it's all right. Then he gives a speech to the people, wherein he declares he will be leaving, but that he is still their mayor. I'm sorry, but I don't think Bethesda understands that there is a connection between gangs and power vacuums. Once Hancock leaves, Marowski would obviously seize control. He even says at one point he had enough power to rule Goodneighbor, but the heist on his chem lab ended that possibility. You can't just say, "I'm leaving, but I'm still in charge, guys," to a town famous for being an anarchist slum of lowlifes and criminals. This is just a joke. But that's it. We finished the heist and have Hancock available as a follower. This quest is praised as one of the best in the game. Like the quest for Henry Cook, I enjoyed the double crosses and the many routes we can take. The quests relating to Goodneighbor have some of the most player choices available, but the substance itself is just alright. It's not bad, I would put it a step above the rest, but I think it could have used some cleaning up. The town of Goodneighbor has a shamefully small amount of locations for the player to explore. This town only has 10 buildings the player can enter. 2 of these do not have loading screens and are open-air shops at the front of the town. 3 of these 10 locations are guarded warehouses that store nothing of value and serve no purpose to the town. The player has access to 1 bar, 1 hotel, 1 arms shop, 1 general store, Hancock's house, the memory den, Bobby No-Nose's house, and 3 warehouses. Let's take a look at all the town offers one by one. The Memory Den. The Memory Den is the main attraction for the town of Goodneighbor. It is vital in completing the main quest line. If we come here before we have been given the quest to do so, we can experience some interesting things. This location is a doozy, so I'll be spending some time talking about it. Upon entering, we are introduced to Irma. She is the lady on the chair. She will try to shoo us away multiple times, stating that we don't look like the type of patron that would be interested in a place like this. She can smell the main character on us, I guess. The gaunt, disgruntled, bloodshot-eyed character I made doesn't look like someone who wants to relive happier times, I guess. She will ask us if we are even aware of what business goes on in the memory den. Well, after hearing every guard outside mentioned how they wanted to relive memories of a girl they knew a while back, I wouldn't have guessed Irma. She informs us they are not looking for new customers at this time. I don't know how someone so allergic to customers could keep a business going, but okay, Irma. One of the 5 businesses in this town isn't accepting new customers. It's a wonder anyone comes here in the first place. We can bribe or convince Irma to let us use the facilities. We ask her for a chance to be a patron. She will respond by giving us a free trial. What? This woman is comically allergic to caps, my god. She tries to deny our patronage twice, then gives it to us for free? Okay, Irma. I would think convincing her would be convincing her to let us be a patron, not for free. The bribing option should be double the regular fee, because it's a bribe, and we should be allowed to pay the normal fee after convincing her. It's not a big deal, but it seems like they skipped a step. We hear that memories involving people are the easiest to tap into. She directs us to think of any recent events involving loved ones. Well, my character bagged the singing broad at the 3rd rail last night, so one comes to mind pretty easily. Otherwise, we have Kate's disposition fully maxed, so that's another love interest in our very recent past. Irma will ask if anything comes to mind. This is where the railroaded main story reveals its ugly head. She is clearly directing us to think of our wife and son. We know this because we are given the options my wife and my son. Nobody we've known since then. Remember, she said think of recent memories. Well, my character has been in the Commonwealth for over a year, killing and looting and meeting new love interests. But of course, the only recent event we can see is the year-old cutscene from Vault 111. Well, my character hated his wife and bastard. He has made no effort to locate his son for a year. Really, he is happy to have left the old suburban 9-to-5 life behind. Living day to day in a brutal world shows you how important the little things are. To my character, those little things are Jet, Kate, and bullets. Kate and I met some travelers all the way out from the den and bought some Jet. Oh, wait. Jet is in Massachusetts, in pre-war chests and safes? But Myron invented it in Fallout 2 on the West Coast. I was there. I saw the slaves that they were testing on in that horrifying laboratory. But Bethesda retconned it. What did we expect? So I chose the option, don't say. It's none of Irma's business that my character wants to relive that scenic boat ride with Kate to Far Harbor. We enter the memory lounge and hear Dr. Amari say she's found a strong memory in our hippocampus. Very recent, she says. Oh boy, here it comes. Okay. White screen. The memory is surely on its way, just a little more. Finally, here we are. What the fuck, man? Oh yeah, the main story I don't care about. Well, this is so much better than anything I would have picked. Yeah, this is great. Yeah. Lock us into 3rd person. Cool. Don't make our character invisible. No, instead apply a stealth boy effect. That way we can see our blurry body in the way of anything we are trying to look at. Yeah, let's run around like an elite from Halo instead of putting it in 1st person, where we can get a clear view and our body isn't an obstacle at all. This is wonderful. Let's watch NPCs stand there and wait for their cue to walk forward. Let's listen to the clunky dialogue and watch the choppy animations. I'm so happy I can watch my wife die again. I love being reminded there is a shitty main story I'm supposed to be following. Instead of the very recent time I took control of raider gangs in an amusement park city, or the time we cured our significant other's jet addiction, or that time we killed Alduin. Oh, wait, was that... I could have sworn that was this game. Oh well. Quick question. Why isn't the memory seen from the player's point of view? We aren't even watching a memory. This is a scene from outside our body, seeing things in that moment our player never saw. We were trapped in that pod and should be watching from there. You know, because it's a memory and you aren't in third person in your memories. Moving on. We exit the main quest reminder and talk with Exposition McGee over here. That's after 16 seconds of white screen, of course. Irma apologizes, as she should. Funnily enough, we can demand a refund. Irma will apologize and give the player 100 caps. This makes sense if we paid for the services, but otherwise it's just one of those funny Bethesda moments where a character is locked into a reaction but the dialogue leading up to it doesn't match. They gave us this trial run for free, but after the trauma show, she refunds us 100 caps. Guards, this woman does not know how a business works. Please come and get her. Aside from this interaction and the main story quests with Valentine and Dr. Amari and a couple Institute quests, there isn't anything else here for the player. We can see that Skinwalker Deacon around here, but he follows us around town all the time anyway, so it's nothing unique. Next, let's look at those 3 warehouses. There are 3 warehouses in Goodneighbor. Oh, that's fucking redundant. Each one will have a few triggermen inside. These NPCs are always hostile. I don't know why they are here, other than just waiting around for jobs. If we kill them all, there is no repercussions. They can't be Marowski's men because he will never mention it nor care, but given the 3 triggermen behind the Hotel Rexford and the squads of triggermen he will send to collect our debt, I assumed they were under his payroll. It sure looks like this town is set up perfectly for a quest line to overthrow Hancock and have Marowski and his triggermen take their place. But nah. Hancock will shoot them with no issue, and he won't have any dialogue about them. Wouldn't it be cool if once we have Hancock as a follower, he could use his authority to end any fight in Goodneighbor? Telling them he's the motherfucking mayor, and if they shoot at us, he will have them gagged, bound, and sent to Cleo to have some fun. I assume this is just the developer's way of trying to pad out the population of this town, but these people here don't make any sense. What are they guarding, and who is paying them? Typical Bethesda world design. We don't have any creative ideas to fill the space. What should we do? Put some enemies in there. Players like shooting enemies. Why not follow New Reno's example and have all the rundown houses filled with druggies and struggling lowlifes? Walk in and see the darker side of Goodneighbor. These people have to find refuge here, off the main street, hidden from most visitors. You could have had a few quests where the player could either help some of these people recover or relocate them to a settlement. Or, if Bethesda cared to write evil choices in their games, we could use charisma to figure out exactly what chem each person uses, and then sell different individuals different chems at an inflated rate. Imagine how interesting that would be. Yeah, you can sell Jet anywhere, but there's that specific junkie in Goodneighbor who buys it for more because he's desperate. Giving the player a unique way to make more for certain chems, but with a heavy moral and ethical cost. Have junkies instead of enemies. Your rewards in-game don't always need to be caps or ammo. Maybe after so many sales, some of these NPCs could die like Mama Murphy, emphasizing how the player drove them to collapse for extra caps. Fleshing out your character is a reward in itself, and that's missing in Fallout 4. Regardless, this is just another example of Bethesda being unable to write morality any more nuanced than black and white. People in this town are either always peaceful or instantly hostile, good people or pure evil. And that's a wrap for the warehouses. There really isn't much to them. Next, let's look at the third rail. The third rail is the only bar in town. It's also the only location with live entertainment in Fallout 4. The stage and music are excellent additions to the bar. It really is a pleasant spot for your character to come and sit for a while, enjoying the music. The third rail is so named because the bar is constructed inside a walled-off section of the subway. That's pretty damn cool. You know what's less cool? Having piles of garbage and holes in your floor. I understand this place is a slum, and Fallout 4 is hyper messy to convey this is a post-apocalypse. But in one of the main attractions of this town, owned by the mayor, wouldn't it look a little nicer? To me, this rings of laziness rather than an aesthetic decision. This building looks like all other buildings in the Commonwealth. Look at this pile of refuse in your average raider den. Now let's compare this to the third rail. Well, that's disappointing. In the third rail, we can receive a job from the bartender Whitechapel Charlie. Side note, I love Whitechapel Charlie. Bethesda, do more of this. He tells us he has a dirty job needing done. 3 locations. No witnesses. And the catch is it's right here in town. Oh, those 3 warehouses full of triggermen subsisting off of we need to be here for a quest energy? They fucking photosynthesize quest energy for food or something, trust me. Anyway, we can do the yellow, orange, red and raise the price to 400 caps. If we ask him who the job is for, he will say Hancock, who is standing right next to us. But here's the funny thing. I killed those triggermen before I ever received the job to do so. Charlie will say this.
After it's done. Don't worry. I'll know when it is.
But he obviously doesn't because we already did it. So why would he be paying us after the fact? And why can we talk up a higher price after the fact? And if the job is for Hancock, aren't we basically just convincing a guy to pay more of Hancock's money for something that's already done right in front of Hancock? Why isn't there unique dialogue for if we've already done it? It's done. He shouldn't be paying us at all. Hancock could have had a unique line like, "Hey man, if you're struggling financially, you can just tell me instead of swindling my associates for money." Or something like, "Listen kid, I'm all for a good deal, but this is my money here." And a better question is, why does Hancock want them dead? Who are they working for? What justifies killing all those men? That was like half the population of Goodneighbor in those 3 buildings, and we just purged them. Why? In the VIP lounge, we can meet the second follower in this town. MacCready is talking with some gunners. From this conversation, we learn that he used to be a gunner, but stopped working for them. They are letting him leave, but he is no longer allowed to offer mercenary services inside gunner territory. This is very good world building happening here. It's so refreshing to see gunners who aren't just raiders with different armor. I wish we could have seen more of them like this, and more content like this in general. MacCready will offer the player his services for 250 caps. Fun fact, MacCready was one of those children from Little Lamplight in Fallout 3. Remember Little Lamplight? I wish I didn't. He can be hired, romanced, and all that good stuff. I don't find MacCready to be a very interesting follower compared to the rest, so we leave him here. We'll leave him here to keep up the appearance that this town has a population and receives any kind of business. The player can also talk to the singer, Magnolia. Through a speech check, we can seduce the singer, and I'm all for it. Interactions like this flesh out the type of character the player has written. Are you a dashing rogue who loves the ladies? Or do you tell her to get lost so you and Hancock can get high, find a trigger man, and play Russian roulette again? And that's it for the third rail. Let's move on. Next, let's check out Goodneighbor's marketplace. The first of the two stores in Goodneighbor is Kill or Be Killed. As the name implies, this is a weapons store. This may shock you, but I really enjoy the store Kill or Be Killed. The owner and clerk is a robot named Cleo. She exhibits some of my favorite dialogue in the game. This NPC feels out of place in Fallout 4, being witty, snarky, and professional without a hefty dose of annoying as hell. She sells some solid merchandise, plenty of guns, and a few decent legendary items. If we look in her terminal upstairs, we can read her contingency plans. Cleo actually has a plan to kill most of the members in Goodneighbor. In case the need should ever arise, she has a detailed method to assassinate people and get away with it. I very much enjoy this detail. These plans are actually feasible, and it's interesting how an Assaultron thinks. Unfortunately, Cleo does not offer the player any quests. That's a shame because I enjoy the aesthetic of the store and the clerk. I wouldn't mind coming back for gun running quests. Honestly, this would have been a great opportunity to have a gun runner location. Goodneighbor serves as the perfect location to sell special or illegal arms. This town serves gunners, mercenaries, triggermen, and the locals. I think they should have added caravans to this town as well, but that's not the point. Most likely they didn't, because caravans would go against the 1950s mobster aesthetic of Goodneighbor. The fact is, this location is a unique melting pot of the Commonwealth's various mercenary factions, the only ones that exist without DLC for that matter. What better location to have a thriving gun market? That would also add something unique to this location and may entice players to return regularly. Having many unique guns and models available here exclusively would bring more business to the town with NPCs and players alike. Cleo is the perfect cutthroat businesswoman to oversee the operation. We could have seen quests to deliver special weapons or mods to various gunner or mercenary groups. Maybe a gunner lieutenant ordered a unique heat vision scope for his gun. The player could deliver this for a fee. Or maybe an accident occurs and the gunner was killed by a rival member before we could make the delivery. After we shoot him and pass a speech check with Cleo, the unique mod would be ours. Or perhaps we have a quest to eliminate the competition. The player could be sent to assassinate Arturo in Diamond City, bringing many of his customers to Cleo instead. Maybe she could be a temporary follower for the duration of this quest and aid us in the assassination. Afterwards, she could receive many new clients, including Diamond City's very own security. Perhaps now we see one or two embarrassed Diamond City guards purchasing weapons at Kill or Be Killed. They could be grumbling under their breath about how they hate coming out here to restock their barracks, worried each time they'll be mugged or killed in the town that despises them. Gun running would have been perfect in Goodneighbor. But that's it for Kill or Be Killed, so let's move on. The second store in this town is Daisy's Discounts. This is a general store, so you can buy and sell just about anything here. The owner and clerk of this store is a 270-year-old ghoul. We can have a conversation wherein Nate will use his pre-war knowledge with Daisy. She will ask the player what life was like before the war, to which I responded the same as now. Our response was the lamest thing I've ever heard, and yet she praises our bullshitting abilities. The other two options mention details that someone who actually lived pre-war would know. Or we can ask her to go first, but who picks that? Bethesda just churns out these golden nuggets of conversation sometimes.
It was pretty much what we have now, just with less rust.
Yeah, that's true, isn't it? Well, you're either the most well-preserved ghoul I've ever seen, or you're the second best bullshitter and Goodneighbor. Ha!
Daisy, unlike the only other shopkeeper in town, does offer the player a quest. What a shame. The quest Public Knowledge will be given to the player if we ask for work. You'll never guess what variety of quests they gave the pre-war ghoul. A woman who is the same age as the player, who has walked this area for 2 centuries. You never would have guessed it would be a kill quest. There is a library full of super mutants, and she wants us to clear it out and return an overdue book. She has been around here for 200 years and never hired anyone to do this before and never found a way to do it herself. I don't think the super mutants were there for 200 years. Either way, we shoot our way through yet another dungeon for bleak congratulations and some caps. That's about it for Daisy's discounts. Next, let's look at the Old State House. The Old State House is where Hancock lives and governs from. This house is shockingly empty. There is some light furniture and a few neighborhood guards. Aside from that, it's just a decrepit, empty home. Like, that's it. Well, that will be the shortest section of this video by far. Moving on. Next, let's look at the Hotel Rexford. Buckle in, Amicas. There is a lot to say about this place. Let's start with this fact. The Hotel Rexford is the only place to rent a bed in Goodneighbor. I mean, when people have had too much to drink, do they open the door of Goodneighbor and walk past all the super mutants outside? I doubt it. That being said, you'd think it would be a nice and busy place if that's where everybody is staying. Then it should be buzzing with activity, right? Wrong. This place is a nearly barren, sad, flavorless box. Holes in the dirty cement walls, boarded up windows, empty crooked picture frames, wooden beams, chunks of cement, and garbage on the floor, comically placed next to an NPC sweeping. Did the bombs fall yesterday? This place is a dump. How is this place at all appealing to anybody? I know the population of Fallout 4 just refuses to clean up any of their living space, because 200 years after the apocalypse equals filthy at all times for some reason, but this is just absurd. If this is the only place to stay in town, then it would be getting a lot of business. A whole town's worth of business, in fact. They could charge whatever they wanted and people would pay it. Since this town and these writers don't have the faintest understanding of economics, I'll spell it out. Exclusivity equals unrivaled price gouging. But none of these business owners ever even try to make money. The Hotel Rexford would not be short on caps. There is no reason for them to behave this poorly, pun intended. This place also serves as the headquarters for one of the biggest chem dealers in the Commonwealth, Marowski. But the game does nothing with this. Marowski will sit in his office all day with one bodyguard and look at a book. Fred Allen seems to be his only dealer in town. They could have taken this hotel in the direction of the Atomic Wrangler, a location in Fallout New Vegas that is very similar to the Hotel Rexford. While it is technically classified as a casino, it serves as a casino, hotel, and brothel. Kind of like all the things people would be willing to spend caps on in one location. This establishment, just like Goodneighbor, is located in a sort of no man's land of factions. NCR, Van Graff, Kings, and the locals come here to spend their caps. It, like the Hotel Rexford, would be serving a melting pot of different factions and groups. What better location to have a small, all-in-one business? It even has a comedian. I cannot stress how great it is for a location to have a comedian with terrible material. It adds so much personality and life to the place. Anyway, Goodneighbor. Out of all the towns in Fallout 4, Goodneighbor is the only sketchy anarchist hub of mercenaries and lowlifes. Like Freeside, The Den, and New Reno. Why wouldn't there be a casino? Or whores? They have a guy openly selling jet at the front desk of this hotel, but no ladies? Not even a slot machine? This town is talked up, but these people are allergic to business. Everything here is a bleak, watered-down version of what it should be. The town pretends to be a hub of rough individuals, but this tiny ghost town of celibate druggies doesn't make any sense. When I entered the Hotel Rexford, the first thing I thought of was the Atomic Wrangler. The player can complete a series of quests to help the establishment bring in business. The player is sent to collect debts from various people to make up some of those caps.
Hello there. Hey, man. Can you spare a few caps? Oh, what the hell was that for?
We can also find some new talent for the joint. The player can enlist a few NPCs to work as prostitutes in the Wrangler. Each one is unique, and the result is quite a memorable group of co-workers.
I am programmed for your pleasure. Please assume the position. Servos active.
Bringing this business back to life with these quests is excellent. Meeting interesting NPCs and having a real tangible effect on the world. Quests more substantive than 400 caps for a part at the end of a dungeon. If they were going to make the only hotel in this town barren, they should have had some quests to fix it up. We can find two quest givers in this hotel, Rufus and Fred Allen. These are the local mechanic and chem dealer. They give us mimic quests. Rufus will give the player the quest Trouble Brewin, where we are tasked with retrieving a brewing machine. Fred Allen will give us a quest, but strangely it goes right to our miscellaneous section. No official name. We are to bring him a hallucinogen canister. He at least has the balls to tell us up front that it is a gunner dungeon. I really don't know if Bethesda is capable of writing quests that aren't fetch quests. But is it possible? You might ask. Fret not, Amicas. I present you examples. Why couldn't we have hired more dealers for Marowski to help out Fred Allen? He says he brews the jet himself. Why not expand his business? He has a whole drug lab in the basement. The four-leaf fish packing plant supplies the majority of the chems, but they are distributed through very few NPCs in the world. Why not set up the center of operations here in the Hotel Rexford with Marowski? Rebooting the kingpin career of a once great mob boss would be a great opportunity for some dynamic quests. Perhaps a quest to kill the chem dealer in Diamond City. People in Goodneighbor openly say they despise the cowards in Diamond City behind their green walls. Why not take some action on that and remove the competition? We could assassinate the chem dealer from Diamond City Market, either in the open, which could deepen the rift between the two towns, New dialogue could be added in both towns, showing an escalation of hatred for each other. Or we could kill him quietly and set it up to look like an overdose, and people are none the wiser. Maybe another quest could be added to find some new guards for security in the building. The front desk worker, Claire, says this:
No refunds in the event of armed robbery or kidnapping during your stay.
Why wouldn't we have a quest to hire on some security in the first place? Marowski has one guard, and that's it. The player could be given the option to hire more of the neighborhood watch, the gunners, or the triggermen. This could cause a change in Goodneighbor. People's dialogues could reflect the kind of business and staff you've brought into town. Maybe if the player chose the gunners, you would see the most profit, but the citizens would despise you. The gunners are too harsh and punish late payers mercilessly. Perhaps choosing the neighborhood watch could earn you brownie points with all the guards around town. The player could be excused for petty theft or even murder. Maybe if the triggermen are chosen, the neighborhood guard will try to rough up the player. Maybe even having a few neighborhood guards waiting outside the door of Goodneighbor to jump you. There is supposedly some animosity between these two groups. It would be nice to actually see some. If Bethesda cared about player choices, they might have even written a story for Skinny Malone, another leader of the Triggermen. Perhaps using the Triggermen to help protect the drug business would be the beginning of a new quest chain. A chain to overtake the neighborhood guard and usurp Hancock. Skinny Malone or Marowski could take this place, and we could see a Goodneighbor Phase 2 at its end. A much more profitable and busy town, but the criminal elements have only worsened. This concludes the available locations in the town of Goodneighbor. This brings us to the conclusion of this video. It's more difficult to cover a town than it is a quest line. Since things are not in a 1, 2, 3 order of progression, covering a town as a whole is a bit more abstract. I've consulted the wiki multiple times, but it's possible I've missed a quest that interacts with Goodneighbor but does not start in it. I did skip a few quests intentionally, those quests related to the Institute and Railroad. Quests to aid synths and whatnot. I skipped these because I think they are irrelevant to the topics I take issue with in Goodneighbor. That's hero shit. Goodneighbor is the exclusive location for gangster activity and a clean slate for any dirty players. As such, I analyzed how it performed in this role. It did not perform well. Goodneighbor is a town of peaceful, celibate druggies. Everyone here just seems to exist, but not do anything unless the player initiates it. It's really weird. It has a weird, phony vibe to it. They clearly leaned into the 1900s mobsters for this town's aesthetic. Suits, slacks, fedoras, and Tommy guns. It's a great choice and it works well within the world of the Commonwealth. However, they don't do anything with it. If it's a mob-styled town, then where is the mob? It really feels like a Skyrim town with Fallout paint. I mean, it's eerily similar to a minor hold in Skyrim like Dawnstar or Morthal. Just day after day, guards in the same spot, saying the same things. Go mine for silver, go hammer a wall. Shops that just seem to exist for the player with almost no traffic. Barely enough NPCs to even look inhabited at any given time. Now, for those that made it this far, here are some rebuttals. I am so tired of people saying just use mods or chalking up problems to engine limitations. I don't know how many people need to hear this, but if a game needs player-created fixes to be good, then it is a severely flawed product. I am so tired of 9 years of these asinine deflection arguments. Even with the engine limitations, you can still make in-depth and interesting stories and locations. Fallout New Vegas is the most obvious example. They used the same engine, Gamebryo, I believe, as Fallout 3, and yet created an amazing game. Fallout New Vegas is already missing pieces of content that had to be cut due to the small budget and only 18 months of time to make the game. Yet it stands a mile above Fallout 3 and 4 in almost every aspect. Tim Kaine and the developers from Black Isle Studios created one of the most realistic and immersive game worlds I've ever seen. Part of the draw to Fallout, for me, is how practical and human the world feels. Even with aliens and super mutants, the NPCs function like real people would in a post-apocalypse. This isn't by mistake, it's because the writers and game designers cared a lot about the world they were creating. Here's just one example about immersion. People only understand and know the information that's available to them. If you grew up in a primitive village, you'd be unlikely to understand calculus or know how to order food from a cell phone. The earlier Fallout entries show how people's understanding of the world is limited to their location. In Fallout 2, they call power armor suits giant bug men. Just look at the XO1. That is a very reasonable conclusion if your whole life was spent farming and living in a scrap town. Hakunen's last encounter with the player is another great example from the same game. He will tell the player that vertibirds came to the village, soldiers killed their warriors and took everyone else hostage. But he is a tribal, and his understanding of the world was from an isolated tribal village. He doesn't know what vertibirds are. Instead of a vertibird, he says giant dragonflies came and breathed fire, and men came out of their bellies. Look at the vertibird, and yeah, that's a solid conclusion to make. Now contrast this with Bethesda's world. Theirs feels like a really shitty Marvel movie of snarky dialogue and sarcastic people who don't take their own world seriously at all. Characters joke about stuff like, "This isn't how I thought I'd spend my retirement."
Claire?
I have been working in this hotel for over 40 years, and this is not how I imagined spending my retirement.
How would you have any concept of retiring, let alone have that as a possibility in the post-apocalypse? Everyone in Fallout 4 knows what a vertibird is. Every NPC is sarcastic and nonchalant about the brutal world around them. It doesn't feel like people survived here. More like they were taken from our current world and dropped here with all of their modern American sensibilities, and now they're just trying to make the most of it. Now, if I missed anything important about Goodneighbor, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear some redeeming qualities about Goodneighbor that I missed. Otherwise, that's about it for Fallout 4's exclusive criminal town. They had a good aesthetic, but they skipped almost every aspect that makes a good crime town in a Fallout game. Part of what makes this so frustrating is they had so many amazing examples to look at in the franchise. Fallout 1, 2, and New Vegas are centered around crime-filled slums, and those games do an excellent job at the atmosphere, life of the town, criminal elements, and quests. Somehow the creators of Fallout 4 missed every lesson they could have learned from their predecessors. It just shows an utter disregard for the older material and a general downgrade in the quality of town Bethesda is capable of writing. And with that, Wale Amicas.